Yeah, nice. We're back. I feel like I have to lean into this. We need to get some new mic stands for this setup.
Yeah, we do. Boom.
Yeah, we need an extra boom. I'll hold my mic. But good job wrangling me for another video. I know it's been a little bit. It's kind of my fault.
We've been busy. It's all right.
Yeah, lots of stuff inside, outside of Air. But
Right.
yeah, it's part two of our PX8 video. So
Finally. Yes.
we got that A to D done, and it sounds awesome. We've been running it through the gamut of all sorts of tests, and we finally felt like it was ready to ship out to the world. So our awesome one of a kind A to D circuit board, which not a lot of people in this space do.
Right. Yeah. This the green one. This is the development board. The version before we release. There's one of the partially stuffed production boards.
Yes, not our high res camera either, but I love this color and this finish. It just looks really elegant.
Yeah.
I've always loved this look.
Yeah. Yeah. The raw material with the clear silk screen. Um, that was that wasn't offered very often. One of our early manufacturers was able to do it for us, and then we asked for it a bunch of places, and I think some of them actually started doing it because we kept asking them for it. Um, but yeah, there's a treatment to the copper you have to get right so that the copper doesn't look black. It looks gold instead of black. And so,
Hmm,
yeah,
that's cool.
anyway,
Well,
important.
if you want to talk about what you're drinking, we'll try to keep it quick because there's some antsy Nancy's that have made sure to reach out to let me know you guys just need to talk about the gear.
Okay.
We don't need to hear about
Yeah.
beer. So,
No beer. Yeah. You're not very good at talking about the beer anyway. So this one, we kind of skipped over September. It's now October. So we do often do a bit of a Oktoberfest theme. So I got a new German beer I've never seen before. So this is Tucher root beer, so a red beer, which is I have never seen a German red before. But here we go. That's what I'm having.
nice.
Proper pint,
Is that
5%.
is that Tucker or
Tucher?
Tucker? Oh, okay. It almost looked like an F.
Yeah. Nürnberger.
I'm just drinking water, and it's from my big Berkey water filter, so it gets rid of everything, heavy metals and bacteria and the tiniest particulates. So it's the clearest, best
Mm.
water you can get. Um, well, cheers.
Cheers.
But yes, welcome. So we'll dive into this. So, man, not a lot of people do an A to D, and I'm guessing it's a pretty challenging design to go through. Would you say an A to D is more challenging than a D to A, or
Uh,
just similar but just different things to be mindful of?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really pretty equivalent. You have instead of an analog output stage, you have an analog input stage, and you have a converter chip, you have clocks, and you have whatever DSP you're going to do. And so it's really very equivalent.
Hmm.
Um, you know, we have a USB input instead of a USB output. Um, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think as far as that goes, it's pretty equivalent. You know, it's where it does become a slightly bigger project is that you have to handle a wider array of input levels, I think is the biggest issue. Whereas on the other direction, as a DAC, you have digital and you have which is just a fixed scale. You have
Right.
0 to 100% full scale, and then you have whatever you want full scale output level to be on the output. So That's far simpler. And so the big add-on for the EC is handling um, varying levels. So you either have to have some kind of gain adjustment or attenuation to be able to optimize the analog level going into the converter chip because it it has a kind of ideal or kind of maximum level that it can produce. Otherwise, it starts clipping and distorting. Yeah. And so this being, and in this particular project, it's slightly doubled because we're talking about the primary inputs being phono cartridge. And so we have a pretty wide range of phono cartridge input levels um, and desired gain. As we probably talked about in our first video, we've got 30 dB of range of gain range in 10 dB steps just for the analog section.
Hmm.
And then, so that actually, just as a starting point, that's a good that is a good tool to have as far as being able to manage the input level going to the converter because we have a lot of control there. And then the converter board itself has 4 steps of 2.5 dB um, to, to evenly go between the 10 dB steps on the analog board. So there's essentially like 37.5 dB of range that we do. So that should, I expect that to cover 99.9% of all possible scenarios. I wasn't able to tabulate every possible scenario because I'm not familiar with every cartridge out there. I'm not familiar with. Um,
You can just simulate the universe in your brain though. Like you're fine. So the final iteration of this, I feel like went through quite a bit of changes from the first initial kind of prototype design. I know like parts choices and some parts choices had changed at least. Like the ADC chip itself was changed.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So a lot of this is based on what we came up with and learned in the QA9. And so the QA9, and as it the converter chip we used there was the ARTA, the AT1201, and which is no longer available, and has since gained a small cult status. And so there's a lot of people looking for it. So we still have QA9s available using that chip. But that was not available for us to design into this. So we had to find something new. Um, one of the old standbys had the main feature we needed. So there's the TI part um, was because the main feature that we use again based on the QA9 is that we're using the A to D chip again, very much like we use any of our ESS DAC chips. We we basically disable almost all the features in the chip and we just use the modulator, the output modulator of the DAC chip. And we do exactly the same here. We're going the other direction. We're only using the converter modulator output. So we get raw output at just a few bits at a very high rate. And so with the TI chip, it was similar to the ARTA, but I think it was half the rate. Maybe it was the same rate, but lower number of bits. So that's what we did prototyping years ago. But then we stepped away from it for a few years. So when it came back to it this last year, decided to look again what was available, and so ESS has a much higher performance um, ADC available in that time, and so we switched to ESS ADC, and so it has twice the sampling rate. So it's sampling at uh, 22 or 24 megahertz, a 7-bit raw raw modulator data. And so that's twice as fast and effectively a couple more bits than the ARTA was doing. So it allows us to just give us a little more leeway in the DSP side. Give us a lot more, um, um, yeah, just kind of bandwidth to work with.
nice. Was there, I mean, I know people are going to ask how it stacks up to the QA9. I've already been asked that a bunch, but in terms of those two, is there much that had evolved in this design over the other than have the necessity to change some parts, or like is there anything different in the design scheme than the QA9 that
On the DSP side, no. We're doing the exact same moving average filters that have perfect transient response with no ringing whatsoever. So as far as the DSP side, we are we are um, uh, we're sticking to that proven process. Um, the rest of it, as far as voltage regulation and the analog circuit, yes, it is this is taking page out of taking page of all of our current designs. So it's got diamond buffers, diamond buffer input stage, more of our discrete, um, improved discrete voltage regulation, um, are improved over the QA9, particularly. QA9 was just a two-layer circuit board, so this is our more modern six-layer stack up that has much higher signal integrity, much higher um, uh, power supply, power supply impedances. So in that regard, it is definitely a step up.
nice. I know people would probably like to know that, yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll be happy to hear that the DSP side is uh, more or less the same as
Yeah,
the QA9 because that's gonna have a it's probably gonna be more similar than they are different in the end. You know, like the diamond input buffer, or the voltage regulation stuff. There's gonna be some appreciable improvements that those can bring, but I think largely when it comes to the conversion for that analog to digital conversion, it's gonna have a lot of that same soul
yeah,
as the QA9.
yes, absolutely. Yeah. And then the other improvements here are then that we, um, all the settings are available on the front panel. It's really easy to use. With the OLED screen, you have access um, to all the settings, sample rates, bit depths, filters, and improvements then that the USB output is capable of much higher rates than the QA9 was. Um, QA9, I think we only ever officially offered 192, including DSD as DOP over the USB. And so on the USB side, we have quadrupled that on this design. So we can go up to DSD 4X SDOP and go up to 768 PCM. All of the SPDIF outputs are always naturally limited to 192 for a single wire. So
We can do DOP out of the SPDIF and the
yes, yes,
standard AES and stuff.
yes.
I'm gonna see if I can. Oh, look at that. It's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids view.
Hmm.
Let me see if I can go through your interface here.
Except that it might be reversed. It's reversed on this screen. I think there's an option to flip it.
I think it's normal on the view, but I think
Okay,
for us,
just for us. Okay.
yeah. And I'm not going to change any of the settings because then it'll have to resync the clock. I don't know if you want to talk about like how the AES plus SPDIF plus TOS.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the output mode screen, and so you can access all the settings from the front panel, both the analog input settings and the digital output settings. You can just scroll around, and then the highlighted one is then available to change. Um, so yeah, so obviously on the input screen, it's the large text is displaying the named input, and again, you can go into the menu and you can change that name, custom name if you want. In the output screen, it shows which outputs are active. And so again, you can go into the setup menu and you can disable any of the outputs. And then when you plug in USB, it will auto detect and then it will show that USB is active. One of the complexities with a digital output like this that also includes USB is that um, whenever using USB has to be the sample rate master as far as uh, saying what the sample rate is going to be. And so if you have USB enabled as well as the SPDIFs, which I think that's a somewhat rare user scenario. But if you have USB, the sample rate is then set by the computer, by the software that is being used. Um, and then so you don't have control of the sample rate on the front panel anymore, uh, except for selecting DSD. As long as the sample rate is a compatible sample rate, then you have the option of switching to DSD. So if it's any of the 176 or 352 or 705, then you have the option of either setting it to 1 bit, which sets it to DSD, or you can on the sample rate setting, you can change to DSD 64, 120, or 256.
Yeah, another layer of complexity that was added to this firmware and programming was the peak hold meters, the VU meters that we programmed into it.
Yeah,
That was pretty
yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah, and it's never perfect, and so I've got I compromise and kind of call it at some point again, just because like I would have loved to have tweaked them and played with them, but that would have added weeks to the release time, which we can't afford. And so and so and then so one of the arguments for leaving it was just that again, anybody using this and they're using with a software program on the computer, the official meters and the important ones are going to be on that user interface. So while it's nice to have them here, the any person using it is going to really be looking at the ones uh, on the computer interface.
Yeah, that's true. Even on like a hardware digital recorder, there's going to probably be some reference input VU
Right.
meter on it as well. So it's really just kind of an assistive tool, but
Yeah.
not like the primary
Right.
kind of means of monitoring that. But nice for a quick point of reference. Um, and then on that note, there we should probably at some point put together like a little FAQ on how to best use the digital out. I mean, there's going to be some people
Mhm.
who will know exactly what to do with it and just be like, yeah, I want to plug it into Pro Tools or I want to
Right.
plug it into Logic or whatever program that they already are familiar with. But
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that, I think I, I don't know that much has changed since we did the QA9 and we did something similar there. And so we actually partnered with Vinyl Studio
yes.
as one of the easiest programs to use, if particularly if you're transferring vinyl, which is what we're talking about here. So
And maybe other at some
yeah,
point
maybe
soon
other.
too. Um, yeah, it was really cool. I mean, it's just another testament to like how flexible that function could be. You know, there like
Yeah.
you could really do some cool things with it. I mean, um, you could send that signal into like a digital system. I don't know, like a Crestron or QSys system probably. I know the QSys stuff for the integration world, and I know you can send, analog or
Mhm.
digital into it, and then it can just blast that all over the
Right.
place.
Right.
There's a lot of different, I don't know, there's a lot of different ways that it can probably be used, not just recording.
Right.
I know of some people who don't have a preamp in their system. They just have a DAC,
Mhm.
and maybe they're getting into vinyl and the turntable, the cartridge, the phono preamp, the actual preamp, all that stuff becomes quite an investment. And if you can maybe start slow and just cut the analog preamp out of the mix for those digital people who are just using their DAC as a preamp, that could be one of those potential barriers from someone wanting to get into the vinyl world a bit more. And
Right.
then And then eventually they'll get a preamp and they'll be like, "Whoa, what was I missing?"
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, there's just probably a lot of different ways that that digital output could be utilized. Um, Not just the digital output though, too, but let me see. It's going to be kind of a mess. There's a lot of cables in the recording studio world that are just, yeah, it's not always as clean as a hi-fi setup. But yeah, you're kind of seeing a top-down view on the inside of a unit, and this one's fully loaded right now. So you've got that DS audio input circuit board for your left and right channel, which is right next to the standard balanced and unbalanced input. And um, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to give away too many details, but that DS audio cartridge input is the first of potentially a couple other
Input options. Yeah.
input options that will be able to continue expanding the functionality with this. I think one that we've at least decided on is a line level input.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. Yeah, we're looking at that. So again, it really primarily um for the use of the A to D. Yeah. So that yeah, this product then could serve multiple purposes. So if you want to if you already have a turntable rig with a moving coil or moving magnet, you can record from that. But if you have some other sources you want to record from, potentially add a line level input and then record through um, that same converter as well.
Yeah, you'll benefit from the diamond input buffers and our whole A to D DSP and just the A to D architecture in general. But like one use case scenario that I've been kind of thinking in my head that um, a lot of people have agreed with me on is like aside from vinyl, there's a considerable amount of tape cassette nerds out there still who might want to plug their Nakamichi Dragon into this thing and archive their tape collection. And with the line level input, it's going to bypass the RIAA
Yeah.
curve and the gain staging.
Yes.
And so you can do something like a Nakamichi Dragon. You could, um, in theory, if you had some, I don't know, tube phono stage, and maybe for some recordings you wanted to have some of that added kind of harmonic saturation to the signal, you could route another phono stage, the line output of like some audio research phono stage or something through the line level input of ours and effectively turn the PX8 into just like a recording interface at that rate. But that's really cool. That's just I don't know of like really any other device right now on the market that can do moving coil, moving magnet, and the photo optical cartridge technology, and or digitize it and send a digital signal out, and um, also accept a line level input, or I mean, it would be in place of the DS audio cartridge. You'd have to swap those. Um, And then, yeah, I don't know if I need to talk about any of the other options yet because I think we're still deciding on what to do with
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, there's still a lot of there's still a few hurdles there. So yeah, those aren't set in stone yet. So
Yeah,
it's not.
because I don't want to say like we're gonna do this and then we're like, oh, there's some definite design challenges and
There are there are some design challenges. Just a matter of what it's going to take.
yeah, I think it's pretty awesome as it is. But
Yeah.
we're gonna with that added input functionality, we're gonna continue to see what other new features we can pack into this thing. Um,
Yeah. So, oh yeah, go ahead.
I was also just going to say with aside from physical hardware changes and optional hardware changes that can be done, having a phono stage that has such a robust capabilities with its firmware is really
Yep.
cool too, because we can, add new features and kind of user interface related things, just continue tweaking and improving the functionality. And as we get more feedback from our actual user base or fan base and or potential customers who may be on the fence on something like this and go, man, I really want that, but I wish it could do this. We like that kind of feedback, so send it over, put it in the comments, or send us an email, or just give us a call, and we're happy to chat about that stuff. But there's a lot we can do with this type of product with the firmware that we couldn't do with the old P5,
Right.
you know. Some,
Yeah. Yeah. They had zero user interface besides a couple of manually placed jumpers that I had to open up the unit for.
yeah, you are the user
Yeah.
interface.
Yeah. 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 So like I said, it started shipping a week ago. So we shipped out the first batch last week and this week. Um, and I think we uh, met most of the first initial orders. So a few more come in, so we gotta fulfill those. But yeah, I mean, hardware is ready for I guess maybe a couple months. It was just the last, as is always the case, you know, the last 10% of the firmware takes 90% of the time. So thought I was done 2 months ago, and then oh, and I need to do this. Oh, forgot about this, and yeah, I apologize for that because firmware is not my strongest skill. Bad at it, but it's not my most
Maybe,
productive.
maybe not your most favorite.
Yeah, usually not my most favorite.
Well,
But
we gotta give them props for the ability to do this and the firmware. There's some guys who can't cross those lines at all. So definitely got to give you some props for that. Um, yeah, so now that the full suite of options, the full current suite of options is available, that's been kind of our main hurdle and hold back from kind of getting them out into the hands of some reviewers. So we're
Mhm.
going to start putting together some review units and hopefully get some other professional opinions because I mean, I might be a little biased, I guess, but I think this is probably the best sounding phono stage that I've ever heard. Um, sounds pretty darn amazing. So, you guys got to get your hands on one or go bark at your dealers or distributors and tell them to get one in on demo because they are fully available now. Um, and we have a few dealers that have picked one up and some of them we're still about to ship them out, but got some going out to like Seattle Hi-Fi, Optimal Enchantment down in Santa Monica, Audio Perfection up in Minneapolis. We just picked up a new dealer. This might be a worthy a thing to talk about. We got a new dealer in Texas in the Austin area. They're called Origin Hi-Fi. So if we got any Texans down there, we now have Supra Hi-Fi in Dallas, Icon Luxury Sound in uh, Houston, and Origin Hi-Fi in Austin. But they picked up a PX8, and there's a couple others. Oh, Audioport out in Kansas is, and then one going to the UK. We're sending one to Ireland. Um, so yeah, they're definitely shipping in this full configured form with all options built into them. But yeah, get one for yourself. You won't be disappointed, or just tell your dealers to get one in for demonstration and go and listen to it there. Um, and then yeah, stay tuned on some reviews forthcoming from places like Tracking Angle and Stereophile and The Absolute Sound. And there's a couple YouTubers that I have in mind that we'll get this over to as well. So we can get a whole mixture of feedback on the sound and the user interface and the functionality, which Yeah, it sounds great, but I think that user interface element of this is probably one of the best parts
Yeah.
because anyone who's used some of our older phonos knows that um, if you want to change the gain settings or change the cartridge loading, you gotta pop the hood. You gotta get in there, do it yourself, and it doesn't really make hot swapping components that fun when you've got to crack open the phono stage too if you're trying to do a new cartridge or a new
Yep.
table set up entirely. And then this also has the two separate inputs, so you can have two distinctly different
Yep.
setups, and they're not sharing the same input circuit path. So there's just like, man, a lot of really cool stuff going on. But yeah, it's ready. Let us know if you got any other questions. Shoot them in the comments and give us a call, write us an email. Do you have any other fun stories or things that you think the world needs to know about this awesome little A to D converter?
Don't think so. Mhm. Can't think much else there. It's say, the other feature, unlike the QA9 or the PX or the P5, we have AirLink now, but again, in this scenario, I'm not sure how much that benefits. But again, it does lend to integration into a more complex system if anything wanted to be automated. But
Hmm,
it's there just because everything new we do has it. But again, but if it has the same, USB firmware upgradability as all of our current stuff. So if we think of a new feature or we find a bug, which I'm pretty sure I've squashed them all at this point, but find something we need to change, we can just publish a new firmware file. We download to a USB stick.
that's super cool. Well, I can't wait to put this into some other products or into its own chassis for the recording
Yep.
industry or something like that. Because, I mean, we've spent all this time and research and effort developing it. It'd be a shame to just keep it stuck on the phono.
Right.
So that's
Sure.
that's what I'm going to keep pushing on. But it was nice to hang out with you guys and listen to some music, and we'll see you next time. We'll try to stay on more regular track, but there's a lot of things that we're juggling right now. So we'll keep at it as we can, and we appreciate you tuning in and hanging out with us. So have a good
All right.
weekend.
Cheers.
Cheers.